Hey, welcome to Finished Basketball Student of the Game. My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm sitting here today with Coach Camron Austin. He invited me to the location where he trains out of the doghouse, so thank you for the invite out here.
Yes, sir.
It's
Yes,
really
sir.
dope. I knew you were training here, and I know Logan, his dad, had reached out to me and said that they come up here and train pretty often, and they work with you
Yeah,
occasionally.
yeah.
So
They actually told me about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't want to what is it called? Encroach on someone else's
I got you.
territory. But at the same time, what this series is about is building community,
Right.
And basketball is a community sport, and growing up, you could always find someone to engage with on the basketball court, right? So if you were out at the park by yourself shooting, somebody comes up, you guys run one-on-one, 25, 21. Kids don't even play 21 or 25 anymore. So
Yeah, it's wild.
go to the Y, go to the boys club, whatever gym you went to, you built community with those people. You might
Most
know
definitely.
some of them, you may not know most of them, right?
Right.
But it brought people together. So that's what the Student of the Game series is all about, is bringing people together, especially the trainers and the coaches, the people that should be students of the game, right?
Right.
So introduce yourself, kind of tell people what you do, who you are.
So I'm Coach Camron Austin. I coached high school sports, high school basketball for 6 years. Started my career off at Seguin High School. Finished my coaching career at Steele High School. My last year, I coached freshman basketball, assistant varsity. My last year at Steele, I was the JV coach, first assistant. That was a cool experience, bumping up to another level at high school coaching. And then after that, I wanted more time with my family. I felt like I was pouring a lot of time into everyone else's kid. And I was like, okay, my son's turning 10 this year. I want to, focus on him a little bit more. So I got out of coaching, but I couldn't get away from the game at all. So I was just like, let me get into training. In my training background, my father was a professional athlete, Olympic gold medal high jumper, but his love was always basketball. Like, he loved basketball. That was his sport. He always said high jumping was just a means to an end. And he was only 6'1", freakishly athletic, but, he was still kind of undersized for high-level basketball.
And what's your dad's name?
Charles Austin.
Charles
Yeah,
Austin.
Charles Austin. And so,
High jump, Charles Austin now of the United States. Same height, 232, and he gets it. Had a big straight there as he took off.
when he finished his career, he got into personal training, and he started training professional athletes. So he trained John Starks, Allen Houston, and David Robinson. Those are like the bigger names. But he's stayed real involved with coaching basketball players, youth all the way up to pros. So every time we were in the gym, a lot of the times we were in there training with, some pros, and that was a cool experience, just getting to see all that. And I learned how, track and field is like pure athleticism. It's not really a game. It's just like an athletic feat. How good can you jump? How fast can you run? And I was able to learn how all that training, correlated and translated over into the game of basketball. He always liked watching basketball, watching the movements, how guys move, studying like their mechanics and stuff, and breaking down stuff like that. That's why he liked Kobe, Jordan. His favorite player right now is Anthony Edwards, because he moves so well, you know what I mean? In all aspects of the game. He's strong, light on his feet.
That's what I was going to say. It's funny you brought up Kobe and Jordan, because when we played against each other, so we'll get to that, but when we played against each other in the men's league, your game was very similar to my game. We, obviously I'm about 20 years older, but when we played each other, it made sense. I was like, I can tell this kid understands the game, right? Like, I'm sure your favorite player was Kobe.
Yep, same birthday. We have the same birthday and everything.
August 23rd?
Yeah.
Mine is Jordan. So, and if anybody was watching that game or filmed that game, you saw two players that had similar styles playing against each other, and it was very competitive. And so, shout out to Kobe today. They're unveiling the Kobe statue. So, when you guys see this, it probably won't be the same day, but today they're unveiling the Kobe statue, which is awesome. Rest in peace to him and Gigi and all the other people that lost their lives. The awesome part about what you just told me is the connection to your father, right? And how he's very impactful and inspirational part of your life, being a professional athlete. I had a similar story. My uncle, my dad's brother, was a professional basketball player. So that's where my love for basketball comes. And my dad played ball. He was really good, but my uncle was the one. And so when you have that athletic bloodline, you're going to be good at something.
Yep.
You just got to figure out what it is. Right?
Exactly.
So you talk about mechanics, and I talk to my clients, my players. I talk to them all the time about mechanics, because you'll be surprised how the mechanics of different sports translate into another sport, right? So football, if you ever played cornerback or wide receiver, a lot of the footwork that they use, especially cornerbacks, a lot of that footwork translates to basketball. It's like
it's
you look at like the karaoke motion.
Yeah, crossing your feet
Your
over,
feet,
turning your hips.
Yeah, so you taught at a young age in basketball, don't cross your feet. And, well, that's the quote unquote right way to move your feet.
Right.
But that's typically just when you're sliding, right?
Right.
Defensive slide. But if someone beats you, you got to turn your hips and run, and that's where that karaoke motion comes into play.
It's funny you said the football thing. The guy that actually got me into coaching, Will Hayward, he's a trainer in the area. He trains track and field and football players. He played football and ran track at Southwest Texas, Texas State now, where both my parents went. And he coached at Seguin with me. He's the one he's from Seguin, and he was like, come coach at Seguin with me. And my dad mentored him when he was in school at Texas State, Southwest Texas. And he was always just around. He was like a big brother, so I've known him since I was little. And he got me into coaching, and he always says it with his DBs. He was like, man, basketball is the best for learning footwork. I say soccer and basketball,
Soccer is that.
but he just knows basketball. And he was like, man, you get those guys together, they need to hoop in the off season. He's huge on, football players playing ball, because it just helps them so much.
So you said that, your dad's a professional athlete. You've been coaching you coached
6 years.
6 years, started training.
It was year 2 of training after my coaching career. When I got out of college, I was working with my father doing some training stuff when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I was working with him, and I was doing personal training under him. But if personal training, it's like, it's really a grind.
Right.
If you don't have the clientele built up, it's hard to make ends meet. And I had a little boy, I had my son already, so I was just like, I need something more consistent, more stable. And then that's when my mom was a teacher. My mom was an educator. She taught in San Antonio, out in the Northeast ISD, and then she taught in San Marcos. My grandmother's a professor, so on my mom's side, it's all educators. And then my dad's side, it was athletes. I got into coaching, and my mom was like, you should go be a teacher and coach. Like, you'll do awesome, you'll do amazing. And my mom was a special ed teacher and worked with behavior kids a lot of her career. And I was like, I could always do that, you know what I mean? So that's what I started off. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it out. And I ended up loving it, and that helped me with coaching so much because, one thing with special ed teaching or just teaching in general is individualized instruction, so like you can, but it's terrible for education, cookie cutter, teaching everyone the same. You lose people, you know what I mean? Like you're only hitting a certain amount of kids. So I learned you have to develop that relationship, learn your student, and then, give them that kind of instruction that they need for them, you know what I mean, and individualize that. And that carried on right into my training. You can't train every kid the same. Some kids need to be lifted up, some kids need to be kind of humbled and brought back down to reality. So I was just like learning that. So like when I first started training, started studying kids, it was just all basketball at first, like I was telling you. And I'm watching these kids, and I'm like, this is why you can't do a crossover, because you don't even know how to move your feet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't shoot a good jump shot because you have terrible core strength. You don't even know how to engage your core.
Right.
You want to dunk. All the kids come to me because they want to dunk. We have the high jump background in our family. Yeah. So, I want to dunk. I'm like, okay. So then I start teaching that kind of stuff, and you just learn their bodies, how they move, their mechanics, and then it just makes training so much easier because then you can see the quick progress.
Right.
You know, they see themselves getting better, they can feel it, and then they get hooked. They're like, oh, I need to keep coming, you know, and it's like, dude, I just taught you something so simple, but
it's funny you say that.
it goes
like,
a long way.
Yeah, just the smallest thing will get them re-energized, right?
Yeah.
They could be beating themselves up because things aren't coming, but you get that one little tip that helps them figure it out. I notice that a lot. Yeah, finding those gems, those moments where it's like the light bulb comes on and
Right.
then they're so excited, and it kind of energizes you as a coach and
Yes,
a trainer.
because
Right?
that's the best part, is just seeing them grow.
Yeah.
You know, and then them being happy about it. You know, that's why we do it, to just pass that knowledge on, and hopefully it catches, and then they use it to benefit themselves. You know.
When were you really introduced to the game, and when did you fall in love with basketball?
So So my parents were divorced when I was like 5 or 6. They separated. So my dad, he was in the 90s. He was hot. Like that was his era. Like that was his era. He was traveling. He was competing a lot. So he spent about 6 to 8 months a year overseas, just traveling, competing. In my early childhood, like I was born in 1990. He graduated. Both my parents graduated that year before I was born, and so he was always competing. And we weren't around a lot of basketball at the time. I was in San Antonio, living in Alamo Heights with my mom, and she just had us in everything. I was into skateboarding. I was playing guitars. We were shooting paintball. My favorite sport was soccer, you know, to start off. Football, I was playing tackle football by 4th grade. We just did everything, gymnastics. And then I think in 2nd, 3rd grade, I started playing basketball, but it was just YMCA ball, nothing serious. And I loved it. It was cool. But it wasn't like my favorite sport. 2 things I remember that made me like start really applying myself to basketball. The first one was, you remember the Nike basketball commercial where they?
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it was like one of the best commercials ever. And I remember my dad. He traveled a lot. I always said it, but he was always there with us. You know, we talked to him on the phone. Like he was very involved still, even with traveling and all that. And I remember he was like, man, y'all see that commercial? Like we were on the phone, he was talking about it. He was like, man, them dudes were doing that one move where he was going backwards and he was dribbling the ball like under his shin, under his foot. And he was like, man, that was
Jason Williams.
Yeah, I think so. And he was like, that was so cold. And I was just like, okay. I heard my dad say that, and I was like, bet. Went outside, and I was working on that until I could get it down. And like he came to pick us up for the weekend. One weekend I was like, Dad, before we even got in the car, I was like, look, and started doing it, and he was just like, Dad, like he was so stoked. And it was just like, okay, cool. Like I'm actually like, I picked it up pretty fast, and I was like, okay, I might stick with this a little bit. And then I remember I was telling you I grew up in Alamo Heights. Well, I was living in Alamo Heights at that time. The high school basketball coach at Alamo Heights is Charlie Bogus, the Hall of Fame high school coach. Coach Bogus from Steele. Yeah. And so I used to go to the Mighty Mules basketball camp every year, you know. And I remember one year I was there, in elementary school, and they're going through all the drills on the first day that we're about to do, and it was like killer layups or like X layups, where you go from the elbow layup, other elbow layup. You got to make like 30 or 10 on each side or something. And he was demonstrating it, and he had his son come out and do it. And it was Clay, Coach Bogus, that was over at Steele. And I'm telling you, he was tiny. We were all little, but Clay was so little. He got out there, he was like, all right, Clay, get to it. Show him how to do it. And he was cutting it up. Like, he was so good. Right hand, boom, left hand. You couldn't even tell what hand he was. And we were not even probably like 12 yet. We were, I think we were probably like 9 or 10. And he was just killing it. And I remember, like, I was terrible with my left hand. But I was pretty good, but I did not have that. So I remember going home that day and just working on my left, so that like for hours, like I was just out there all evening. I was like, tomorrow I'm going back and I'm gonna be able to do a left hand layup.
That's the competitive side, right?
Yes.
Like that's the drive that you know you're gonna have a good athlete, or at least a good. They might not be the best athlete, but they'd be a good player when they want to compete.
Right.
I think that's something for me that I see that's kind of missing in the game. Like, so the way we met is through playing competitive basketball in men's league, and our game was super competitive. It was the old guys versus the young guys, and we got chippy. But that was the competitive juices flowing, right? It wasn't. that's basketball. You're gonna, but sometimes you gotta check somebody. But funny story, he tried to dunk on me, and I contested the shot. He didn't dunk it, but the ball went in. We fell down. Cameron walks over me, and I was like, "Man, you don't know me like that. Like, I'm not from around here, bro. I don't play like that."
Yeah.
And so we kind of, we had to have our little altercation. But at the end of the day, it was all love, and
it stays on the court.
It stays on the court.
As long as you don't take it too far, it usually stays on the court.
Right. But that's missing in the game for me. Like
Yeah.
I don't see that competitive nature from kids. I think even just in that example of the layups, not understanding that you need to have a left hand to be good at this game. You went home and that was your mission.
Oh yeah, I was like, I'm not going back, because it just bugged me. I was like, look at this little chump. Like, God, I was just like, I'll kill him. Like, I just felt like I was so much better.
Yeah.
And then I just realized how I wasn't good at all. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because he had all the skills, and I had a little bit of skills. I was real athletic, but like, at that age, you gotta have the skill is what gets you by.
Right, especially when you're small, right?
Right,
You're a
right.
Smaller guy.
So yeah, I was like, I'm not coming back without this left hand. And I wasn't as good as him yet that day, but I was able to do a left hand layup when we got to that drill.
So in high school, when did you? Because this is a big thing that I'm noticing now, and I always tell Jax, my son, I tell him, don't chase me. Don't chase my ghost. Like, basketball's so different now than it was when I was coming up.
Right.
Like, you didn't have as much, you didn't have as many people playing, and you didn't have as many organizations that were club teams or AAU teams. And we really didn't prioritize AAU. Back when I was playing, we played a lot of rec ball, you played a lot of Boys and Girls Club ball. Sometimes you might get invited to a travel team.
Right.
But it wasn't.
It was so different.
It was so different.
Yeah,
And
it was so different.
Like I said, I tell him, don't chase my ghost, bro. I played in a different time. There's a lot more kids playing now. So it's okay if you're not on the varsity as a freshman.
Right.
It's developmental.
It's so different,
You're still developing. I said, I was on the varsity, but guess what? I didn't play until it got to district and someone got hurt. And that allowed me an opportunity to play.
Right.
But, I mean, I can say I was on varsity, but I didn't really play, right? So when did you?
Shoot. So I was, my 8th grade, I was 5'3". So I'm a late bloomer like my father was. He was, like we were just talking about last night, my son is in 5th grade and weighs like 9 pounds less than my dad did his freshman year at high school.
Wow.
Yeah, no, we were tiny.
Yeah.
So my freshman year, I was like 5'5". But I was athletic. I could grab the rim already at that age. And then I hit a crazy growth spurt from freshman year to sophomore year. I think I got from like 5'5" to like 5'9". And I made varsity. I didn't start off on varsity my sophomore year. It was like a few games, and I know for a fact I didn't have a game under 20 when I was playing JV at the start. And then some guys got in trouble for doing some things that you're not supposed to do, and they got kicked off the team, and coach moved me up, and that was cool. I got some playing time. I wasn't playing a whole lot, like you said, because I was still small and learning that whole new pace, but it was cool because, we talked about the community, right? Like San Marcos, we had the activity center, so San Marcos Rec, and that was the thing to do if you're from San Marcos, like all summer. My dad, you get dropped off in the morning, you go hoop, walk over to Mr. Gaddy's, eat, go hang out at the river, go back and hoop the rest of the evening, and that's what you did. So like all those guys that were on varsity, I hooped with them all the time. Yeah. So we all had that, camaraderie. I was already comfortable with those guys. I was cool. I already looked up to a lot of them. So it was an easy transition for me to go to varsity. I always tell, like, I'm real transparent. So like I got in trouble. We had a high standard with grades, so if we had to make A's and B's, and I was, playing around, got a 79 in art. Because I told her this is a blow-off class. She was getting on me about an assignment, and I was like, come on, like, this is just a blow-off class, and she did not like that. So she just took my project, put it in, and I got a 79, and my dad was like, hey, you're not playing until you get your grade up. And I was like, I'm on varsity. I'm like, I can't do that. And coach was like, well, yeah, I'm not going to do this back and forth with you, you know what I mean? Like, we have our standard if you fail, but, I respect your dad's standard, but, like, if he's taking you out for right now, then you're not going to, you got to go back to JV.
Yeah.
and that sucked. I was crushed. You know, as a father now and as an adult, I get it and I respect the standard that, you know, he held me to. But yeah, it sucked, you know, at that time. So I had to go back to JV.
I like the fact that your dad had a standard, right? And so to have that standard as a young kid,
It's huge.
It's huge, and it will take you further in life, right? So shout out to your dad. And your mom, I'm sure. That
Oh yeah,
both
she
of
didn't
them-
play either. You know, she taught in the school district.
Right.
So I was just like, I had a lot of pressure. It's like, you know, my dad went to Texas State. Both my parents went to Southwest Texas, which is Texas State now. He has a street named after him. He's definitely known in the community. My mom taught in the community since I was born, you know, and so like I just couldn't get away with anything. It was like, you know, I have to be on my P's and Q's as best as possible.
So you said your brother played
Yeah,
Baylor.
so he was in high school. He was a late bloomer basketball wise because he was just so long, lanky. Like he had to get used to his body. Like his freshman year, I wish he would have got to play varsity with me. He was big enough to, athletic enough to, but he just wasn't skilled enough. Like my stepmom would count how many times he fell in the game and compare it to how many points he had.
Yeah.
Like he was just like learning how to use all that body and athleticism he had. But by his end of his sophomore year, he started figuring it out. And then that sophomore to junior summer, oh my gosh, he came back so like completely different. But you know, in those summers were when those NBA guys were in the gym with us.
Yeah.
And we got to train. And like I said, my brother had a whole different more mindset than I did. I was like social, wanted to be with the friends, hang out over here and do all that other stuff. Like never getting in trouble, but just wanted to be with my friends
Right.
and just be a normal kid.
Right.
My brother was like, I'm shutting all that down. Like I'm on go. I'm in this gym. My dad owns a training facility in San Marcos, and he was like, he lived in that gym. And it was, for me, it was just like, oh, fine, I'll go. Like, or, you know, I probably train, I tell the boys, like, I might have trained like 3 days a week, and that's more than a lot of these kids do today.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, and I was way more athletic than y'all, and it still wasn't enough for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
my brother was in the gym 7 days a week, even on, you know, Sunday. After practice, he's in there for 2 hours, and he just got so good. So I think he averaged like 20 and 10 his junior year, 22 and 12 his senior year. He was the #1 high jumper in the nation his junior year and senior year, won state
Wow.
both years in high jump. So when it was time for him to pick a school, he wanted to go somewhere where he could do both. So Coach Drew at Baylor was just like, Alex was the #1 track and field recruit in the nation. So they took him for track, and Drew was like, I don't even have to spend money on you. Like, yeah, come on over here. Like, I got a free hooper. You know what I mean? So he got there. But my brother's game was so dominant, like offensively, because of his size and athleticism. It was either like hit the three or just I'm going to tear the rim off, dunk.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't really stop him. It was hard to stop him. So like he didn't really have to learn too many like offensive concepts. Like his IQ wasn't all the way there, so he had to redshirt his freshman year, and then he high jumped, and that's when he got hurt during high jump season, broke his foot, and was never able to compete at Baylor. You know, they honored his scholarship. He had to, you know, do the medical release. They honored his scholarship. He went on to do professional high jump after that, tweaked his knee doing that. It was just like, then ended up he was shooting at a school out in California, and he just went to the gym to shoot around. And the coach asked him like who he was. They chopped it up. Alex had some eligibility. It was an NAIA school in California. And they offered him, they were like, well, if we pay for you to finish, you get your master's, will you play for us, you know, next season? And he was like, yeah, sure. He didn't have any kids. He had nothing else to do. He was like, hell yeah. So he did that, he was a leading rebounder in the conference, best defensive player in the conference. They had the best record in the school history, made it all the way to the national championship. COVID. They were all at the tournament in the hotel room. Guys were sick, guys were healthy, ready to go play, and that's when everything got shut down. So he didn't get to do that. After that, he went and played some overseas ball.
What about you after high school? What was your plan?
So like I was saying, my thing, you mentioned it earlier when we were talking, it's like finding that person that can help change your trajectory. And mine was Paul Button, my AAU coach. But it just, unfortunately for me, like I just didn't trust him at that time enough, like, cause he was like my best friend's older brother.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just put, you know, everything my dad did was on a pedestal, you know what I mean? So anything that said anything different than my dad, I was just like, you don't really know what you're talking about.
Right.
You know, and that's just being young and kind of ignorant.
Right.
But I just, you know, I didn't really listen to him like I should have. I don't want to say like I wish I would have, because I appreciate, I love where I'm at in my life, like my journey. But if I would have listened to him, I ended up I was balling out on AAU. I played unsigned senior that senior year. I was undersized too. So my senior year, I was like 6'1", probably like 158. Like I was little.
We're the same.
Yeah, I was
We're
tiny.
identical.
So then like all I had was, Texas State had looked at me. They said I was too small. I averaged 20 and 10 my senior year. So I was undersized, pretty athletic. I had good numbers, but I didn't really have any big-time schools offering me anything. So I played unsigned senior. I had committed to a D3 school. It was a nice school out in Austin. Sold me on it. Coach had said all the right things, to get me there. So I was like, all right, I'm going to commit to go there. But I still played unsigned senior, had a great summer. Went out to Vegas, made it to the semifinals. I played really well. I got an offer from Paris Junior College, D1 JUCO. And my coach was like, this is where you need to go. This is where you need to go. And I'm telling you, like, I liked sports, but I wasn't sitting in front I wasn't a student of the game other than like the training.
Right.
You know what I mean? I didn't really care to watch games. I wasn't watching college ball like that. I didn't really pay attention to all that stuff. I didn't really know how college sports worked, crazy enough. So like, I was like, man, I'm already going to a D3 school. I'm not going to no JUCO. Like, I'm not going to no junior college. Like, that's under, you think it's D1, D2, D3, junior college. And that was like my mindset at the time,
Right.
just not being ignorant. And he was just like, no, like, this is where you need to go. This is where you need to go. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Like, I was like, I get to be right here in Austin. It's up in the hills, like nice new school. Like, he already said I can play. Like, I'm going to be one of the guys. Like, that's where I'm going to go. And sure enough, like, I get there and it just wasn't for me, that school I was at. Ended up just staying one semester. That year, my freshman year of college, Paris JUCO went on to like make a run. I think they won the national championship or made it to the tournament that year. And I was just like, oh, I should have went there.
I like what you said. Everybody has a different journey.
Mm-hmm.
And something I tell all of my kids I train right now is like, my basketball journey is over.
Right, yeah.
This is your
I already
journey.
did it. Yeah, I
did it
say that all
already.
the time. Like, my dad used to tell us that too. I say it all the time. I tell him, like, my son, hey, I already hooped. Like, I already did it. My window of opportunity for anything like that is over. Like, you see it, the top is these men's leagues. San Antonio in the egg division with like those guys that played pro and like all that, but like that's it,
This is a wrap, right? So now we're just tour guides, right? So as a tour guide in this industry and really trying to build a name for yourself as a trainer, as a coach, what are some things that right now that you feel like are the biggest challenges for you as a trainer to get kids to buy into what you're doing?
It's just understanding like that it just takes so much more work than they think. Like that's just, and I feel like that's always been the issue. That was my issue. I knew it took more work because I watched it firsthand. Like I watched how much time my dad put in. I just thought I was, arrogant or thinking like I had big fish, small pond. Being in San Marcos, like I was better than everyone in San Marcos. New Braunfels, Kyle, Lockhart, like all that I could do, But if I would have went to the cities, I was still pretty good. Like I was in the All-Star Central Texas All-Star game my senior year. Played with a lot of the top hoopers. Coach Thompson, shout out to Coach Thompson over at Stony Point, the head coach over there. Him and I played together at that. So I knew I was able to like play at that level with those guys, but like I just thought I didn't have to do as much, because I was in that small area where I was better than everyone else. So I just didn't get as hungry. But I still did more than what these kids do.
Right.
Like they, after practice, they're like, I'll message, hey, I'm training this evening. Oh, he had practice earlier today. Like he needs to rest. So I'm just like, if all you do is what you do at school, is not enough. And we said that as coaches, like, hey, we got you for 45 minutes during the period. If we're lucky, an hour. We still got to lift. We got a game plan. How much development time do we have right there? You know what I mean? Like, then practice is 2 hours. We still got to do all the things. Like, it's not really individualized skill development or athletic development with the school. So just getting them to buy into that, like I said, all of them. I'm 33. I turned 33 this year. I've been able to do it East Bay, between the legs dunk from 30 all the way up. So I'm like trying to keep that going. And so the kids all know that. I want to jump. I'm like, well, you got to put in the work. I'll have training sessions. They'll train with me for an hour straight basketball. I'm like, hey, y'all stay and do this plyometric or like do the athletic training for 30 minutes with the next group.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired. I'm like, all right, and I'm like, okay,
So you can't
like
push
I'm
them,
not
right?
like you got it, man. I'm just letting y'all know, like and that's probably one of the biggest things, just getting them to realize like it takes so much more work than you could ever imagine. You really just got to buy in, depending on what level you want to go to.
Right.
That's one thing that's tough, and really just like fighting the noise is another thing. Like these kids play for other AAU programs that have coaches that want them to train with them, and no knock to them or anything, but that's why I really like what you're doing. And I talk to a lot of the trainers. I follow trainers from around here, because collaborating and all of us working together, there's enough to go around. And if you're in it for the right reason, you're in it for the kids.
That's right.
You know what I mean? It's not about us. It's not about me at all. Like,
I mean, so.
And so like that's tough, just getting them to understand. And it's not like, I'm not saying I need you in the gym with me, but you got to be putting in a lot more work. You can't just stick with one person. Like, like we talked, I was like, hey, we should do a session where we get both of our boys. You take my son, I'll take Jack's. You know what I mean? Because like that'd be he needs to see it from other kids. And I'm like, and I trust you with him. You've had experiences that I haven't, that you could pour into him that he needs to learn, and same vice versa. So that's real big. Fighting the noise, like parents not thinking they need to do this or that, or the kids thinking they're doing too much. I already worked out so hard at school, and it's just like,
That's great. Yeah.
But
it's a different mindset, and I tell Jax, I'm like, bro, you're lucky you have a trainer.
yeah,
You're lucky you have a dad that played the game at a high level that can pour into you.
Mm-hmm.
Said I had my uncle, he poured into me only for 3 months.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So I learned a lot in those 3 months and what it took. And I don't even think I worked as hard as I should have, right? So I'm giving you the game. Like, I can get you to college. I
Yeah.
can get you to overseas.
We know what it takes.
I know what it takes, but I can't make you do it.
Yeah,
right?
not
So
at all.
That's a big.
And that's one thing I watched my dad try to make me see it. You know what I mean? Like trying to, and it was just, it just wasn't.
Felt forced.
It felt forced, and it just wore him out. It got in between our relationship at times, and I just realized like that's not the route to go. So like with my son, like I said, I coached for 6 years. That boy never wanted to pick up a ball, never wanted to shoot. Coach Bogus, Coach Hubbard, Coach Gerlich, all the coaches at Seguin, Steele, always tried to get him to come shoot. He never wanted to, until I finally stopped coaching, and he started wanting to get into it. But I was always said, like, I'm not forcing him to do any of that. We're going to do stuff. He's going to be active. I always told him, like, you're going to do something. You're going to pick up you do the piano. We're going to do computer coding. You're going to play football, soccer. You're going to do something. But whatever we do, we're going to go hard at it.
That's right.
So, like, with basketball, it was like, when he told me he was like, I'm ready to start training basketball, I was like, shoot, let's go. Like, that's easy.
Fun.
That's easy.
Same, identical, bro. Like,
Yeah.
so I never forced any of my kids to do anything. Like, I don't want you to be me.
Right.
I don't want you to do the things I did unless that's what you want to do.
Right.
So when I was done playing basketball, I completely walked away from the sport. Like, I didn't watch it. I didn't have a ball in the house. I probably had one in the garage, but nothing where it was like visible. I just walked away from the game because out of sight, out of mind. I didn't want to, because I love it so much. I didn't want to miss it.
Right, right.
So it was Jackson, I think, was 6, and he came up to me and he said, Dad, he had a steel basketball camp brochure, and he said, Dad, can I play basketball, and can you teach me? And I said, well, why do you want to play basketball? He said, well, Mom said you played. I said, well, don't do it because I did it.
Right,
do it
right.
because you want to do it. Is
Right.
it something you want to do? If you want to do it, by
Let's
all
go.
means, let's do it.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I want to try it. Can you teach me? And I said, listen, I can teach you, but once we step in those 4 lines,
It's on.
I'm coach.
Yeah.
I'm not dad anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be on you. It's a different type of love. I still love you, but it's going to be a push. Are you up to that? Can you accept that? Can you call me coach? And he said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, now when we step off the court, I'm dad again. I'm going to love
Right.
you. I'm going to hug you. I'm going to kiss you. We're going to
Yeah.
have that bond. But on the court, coach.
You can't be, yeah.
I can't be dad anymore because
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach you. And to this day, he still calls me coach when we're on the court. Sometimes he'll slip up and, hey, Dad, one of the.
Yeah, yeah.
But he's still coach. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
pretty
cool.
funny. But now I'm not as hard on him anymore as I used to. When he was younger, I would push him. And it's funny to go back and look at those videos and kind of see his progression. So hopefully you're recording that with him because it's fun to see.
Oh yeah, that's
how
what I
they
was
grow.
telling you. Like he started training last October, and we have videos of him no hooping shoes, all right hand, and he was patting it like this.
Yeah.
To now a year later,
Now
he's
he has
had little
handle.
handle, left hand's money, right hand's money, and it's just like that consistency, and that's what's been real cool. Just seeing like, hey, when you apply yourself to anything and you stay consistent with it, you're gonna see so much growth and get better. And that was real cool to see. You know, basketball, sports aside,
Yeah.
you know, just learning and growing as a person, and
And basketball teaches you a lot of life.
it's a
lessons,
game of
right?
life.
Yeah.
Yeah, the adversity and all that. Yeah.
So what are some things that inspire you about the game now?
Inspire me about the game now. Honestly, like what just keeps me going is just the kids. Like I just know these kids love it, and like you said, basketball is such a community sport. I'm huge on community. Like that's my thing. I love it. I love building the village. I love the environment, trying to control the environment because my son's growing up in this environment.
Right.
And that's like, so just pouring into the kids. Like I said, I trained Caden Gums. So we were working out one day and we tweaked something with this shot that he liked. And then, you know, a few weeks later, we're all in the gym. He was helping me coach Nate's practice, and Nate comes over and he's shooting the ball. I'm like, dang boy, like I like that thing. Like who showed you that? And he's like, Caden did. I was like, okay, cool. And then Caden was like, well, you're the one that showed me. And I was like, that full circle. And you know, it's like, I'm dad, so it's hard to hear me, but Caden says anything,
Yeah.
like I'm listening to him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool, like I'm good with that because like, and it's just controlling that environment. And I just want to be a positive person in the environment. When I got into coaching, I just wanted to be that coach I wish I had. You know, like Paul Bunn was for me. My thing was like, he just wasn't in the school. I feel like if he would have been a high school coach, like in the school with me, I would have listened to everything he said. But like, it was just like, his credibility was just like deeper than I could see. It wasn't like surface level. Like, you know, you're not even at the school. You're not my dad or some high level trainer. You know, you didn't play big time college ball. He did play D1 ball, but it was just like, you know, he didn't have that credibility in my eyes. So like my perspective to see. So when I got into coaching, I was like, I want to be the coach I wish I had, like that person around that's gonna be cool, like big bro type thing, but like check you and keep it real with you. Like, hey, this is where you're at. This is what you need to do. Like, get over here and get in this gym, or you know what I mean. Stay away from that, and actually be in the school. So it was cool. Like when I was teaching, like I got to be that. I got to be like who I wish I had, and that's kind of what keeps me going with the game. As far as the game, college basketball is my favorite thing to watch. Pro ball is literally elevated men's league to me. You know, until it's crunch time, until those games get serious, like in the later season. But you go to a game, it seems just like a bunch of superior athletes with huge size doing what we do at the rec. You know, playing men's league ball.
Right.
College basketball, I love that because it's just they're so hungry.
Yeah.
You know that.
I've
They
been
want it.
watching
That competition, the level of competition.
way higher.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot more college ball. My cousin that I told you about, that was my bar. His son is now, I guess he's a sophomore at Southern Utah. So they actually play tonight. So him being in college has made me watch a lot more
College ball.
basketball, and that's something that kind of really inspires me is seeing the generations of kids continue to play the game and elevate the game. So
Their skill level is so crazy.
So crazy.
So
It's
crazy.
the skill level now is way better than it ever was when I was a kid. Like I tell Jackson, I'm like, bro, you're more skilled than I ever was at 14, and you're a young 14. You're a young freshman, so I'm like, you should be in the 8th grade. You're way more skilled than I was as a freshman.
Yeah.
At 15.
He's like kids that I coached their freshman year when I first got into coaching. He's more skilled than them as a 5th grader, you know, because they just pick it up so much younger.
And, you know, so the game is still evolving. The kids are getting more skilled. The one thing I wish that they had is that competitive nature.
Yeah, I was going to speak on that. That kills me. Like when I coached, and you still see it, and I talk to some of my buddies that still coach, and it's like you get on social media and it's game day, or right after the game, and you just lost, but then I look on your story and you're shouting out your homeboy that played on the other team. And I'm like, that was when I coached at Steel, that was when I was coaching, I had to, like, I said something, I was just like, we literally just lost a district game. I go home and get in bed and I get on Instagram and you're over here shouting out your homeboy that just beat you tonight on your story. Like, y'all don't see it like that? Like, it's crazy. I had two cousins who were like, I had two cousins that were like half brothers. And they lived in like neighboring cities, towns, and they played against each other. I'm like, they didn't even post each other. Like during district, it's go time. Like I love you outside of this, but like when we're competing, I'm not messing with you like that. And I'm like, but then they're brothers. And I'm just like, y'all are over here shouting out your homeboy from across town that you played AAU with after he spanked you. We had some kids, JV, I'm not gonna say who, but when I was coaching JV, did a full-on jersey swap picture after we lost to the, and I'm like, y'all can't even swap the jerseys because you got to take it. Like they just did it for the picture. And I'm just like, you know, they're so influenced by what they see, you know. But it's just like, yeah, it's just like teaching that competitive. That's hard, is to get the kids to want to compete. One thing that helped me, my pops was like, you respect those guys too much. He was like, you respect the guys that you're hooping with, even your team. You're respecting them too much. Like at practice, like go at them, like compete. Yeah. And a good story. He told me like, the guy that had the American record before my dad, Hollis Conway, my dad looked up to him. They were super cool. But when they competed, my dad was like, nah, forget that dude. And when he beat the record, my dad said he was, like, they were at the same meet together when my dad set the American record and beat his record, and he was talking mess. You can see it in the videos. Like, my dad's a trash talker. After he won the Olympics, if you go Google Charles Austin Olympic, high jump, he's talking mess. Like, after he won.
That's where you get it from.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where my son gets it from, too. Yeah, it kind of. But, like, it's just that, like, he's like, my dad's a different kind of competitor. But to be the greatest to ever do it, you got to be. You know, you look at Jordan, Kobe, like my dad. You know, my dad's my favorite athlete of all time. Just like a crazy competitor. But they're just different. You got to have a whole different mentality, and you got to be able to take yourself to that level. Yeah. And it's hard for kids these days because things are just handed to them. I want something, I'm hungry, I can order it on my phone. It's like instant gratification is killing competitiveness in a little bit.
That's probably it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Ryan.
Great conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hopefully we can continue to do things together.
No doubt. Work with him.
I'm gonna work you out, bro. The goal is just to keep building.
Yeah, no doubt.
Keep building community, keep building together. I want to do some stuff in the summers. I'm trying to find other gyms where we can do camps and bring people together, bring different groups of kids together, and make it to where we're all, like I said, we're all growing, we're all learning, but we're all eating together. It's not a separate table. It's the same
There's abundance, man. There's enough for everybody. When you have that mindset, it's tough. So I appreciate you, man. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yep.